no biggie. As long as it's more just so that people can find the ballots quickly. All right, 5 after. We do have Bennett just showed up, so I'm glad I waited that extra minute. But we'll call the meeting to order at 5:05 Mountain Time. And if you could pull up the agenda whenever you get a chance, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, let me start sharing my screen. I've got everything ready.
Sure.
And 1 and a 2 and.
And reminder to everyone: if we finish this today, we do not have a meeting on Saturday.
Yay.
If we don't finish it today, we do. So there's some motivation for you.
Well, we had well better finish this today. I got a thing on Saturday. It's called an executive committee meeting.
Oh, a meeting. Yeah, is that? But it's Saturday afternoon.
There's a bylaws meeting on Saturday. That's going to be fun too.
Yeah, but that doesn't conflict with ours, so I was already planning on going to both.
All right. If you can see my screen, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm ready to go for roll call.
Okay, well, first we have, I think, public comment, do we not? Or is roll call first? I always forget what I put first.
Roll call is usually first. Roll call is usually first.
Okay, do the roll call, and then we will allow public comment.
Yes, okay. Matt Toko. Not hearing on Laura Epke.
She said she couldn't make it.
Okay, let me get my.
Richard Longstreth is here.
Okay. Richard Fast.
Here.
Jim Flonner. Helen Gilson. I see Mr. Cagoli. Paul Brindle. Duke Van Horn. Okay. Tom Snap.
Here.
All right. Kat Martin. I saw.
Yeah, she's here.
Yeah. Josh McHose, I see. Randy McGlenn. Al Meckley.
Here.
Yep. PA. Bennett Morse.
Here.
I see. Dale Perry.
He was here.
Here.
Yeah, I see him on the list. Yeah. Omar Crow is present. Roger Roots. Brian Selinsky. Aaron Starr.
He's at work.
Yeah.
She's here for him.
Okay.
There's no way Mr. Roots is going to miss a corporations discussion.
Gary Taylor.
Here.
Okay, and Madam Chair is here. Okay, that's 10 primaries that are here. We're going to go through the alternates real quickly. Jeffrey Adams. Jim Cagoli. Brett Cole. Oh. Sandra Diaz. Stephanie Diaz de Leon. Richard Longstreth is present. Lisa Madison is present. Betty Rose Ryan. Gus Talis. John Watts. Jeff Wood. All right, now moving on to the second. Luke Enzor. Lisa Gaiola.
I'm here.
Oh. John Fockler is present right here. Matthew McNear. And AJ Olding. Okay, so we have 10 primary. Mr. Cagoli would be 11, 12, 13. Michigan is Mr. Fulner, right?
Yeah, and Lisa is one of his alternates, I believe.
Yes, so 3, 4, and Ohio, I don't see Ohio is Mr. Cagoli, right? Okay, so quorum is 14.
We don't have the alternate for Ohio here?
Yes, Mr. Cagoli.
Okay, gotcha.
See, so there's 3 plus 1 equals 14 for quorum.
Okay, gotcha. All right, now is an opportunity for public comment. I see we do have a few members of the public here, so if anyone would like to speak, please just get my attention. I'll recognize you.
Hello.
Who's this, please?
Brian Selinsky.
Oh, Brian is here. I'll change his name.
I could not get the computer one to work. I kept on getting the password here.
Okay, I got you.
I'm on the phone.
Got you. Thank you.
Okay. I've adjusted the count.
Okay, anyone else like to speak? And those who aren't speaking, please make sure you're muted. Okay, seeing no comments. Oh, sorry, was there someone? Nope. Seeing none, if we have time at the end, we always allow that again. And so we were going to move on to the business. And when we adjourned last time, Mr. Fast was on deck to propose an amendment. I'm just going to recap where we're at, and then I will recognize Mr. Fast, and anyone who raises their hand, I'll put in the queue behind him. Where we are at is to add a new plank. There's no name yet. We will determine that if it passes and where it would be placed. And the proposal is corporate entities are not people and possess no rights. That's supposed to be distinct. That was, Mr. Secretary, that was a typo on the part of Mr. Fulner. And possess no rights distinct from the individuals. I can't read that. Within them, individuals who form corporations neither gain nor lose any right they had previous to incorporation and are liable for their acts of willful negligence and fraud. Mr. Fast, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So my proposal is to amend this proposal by adding at the end, quote, "We reject government charter of corporations. We call for a separation of business and state," end quote. Madam Chair, can I speak to my amendment?
Certainly.
Okay, so there seems to be 2 strands of thought on the corporations proposal that are confusing its discussion. One is that corporations are inherently bad because they require state charter to exist, and 2, that corporations have a tendency to be bad actors engaging in willful negligence and fraud. So this amendment seeks to clarify the proposal. As to the benefits, just as libertarians support the separation of church and state, and darn near everything else, so it follows that we support the separation of corporations and state and all other commercial entities. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak for or against the amendment or propose an additional amendment? Ooh, not chattery tonight like usual. I'm giving it a minute because I'm in disbelief. Mr. Roots is not present. All right, so who's that, please?
Richard Fast.
Yes, when you're on the phone, if you just please say your name in the beginning, because it's sometimes hard for me to tell. Yes, Mr. Fast.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll try to do that from now on. Okay, so I just wanted to add that Mr. Fulner, who I believe was the person to propose the original proposal, he has seconded my amendment to his proposal. So I think it's just worth noting that the person who is proposing the original proposal also supports my amendment. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay, that's useful. No second is required in committees, but his support is good to know. All right, is there any further comments, debate, amendment?
Point of information.
Yes, Mr. Taylor?
Is the amendment as it's shown right now correct, or is there a sentence that's missing?
There's a sentence that's missing, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Fast, can you say for, there's a sentence before we call for separation of business and state. Mr. Fast, can you please read aloud your amendment?
Yes, the amendment is, quote, we reject government charter of corporations. We call for a separation of business and state, end quote.
Yeah, thank you.
And I am letting Mr. Fulmer in.
Reject government charters.
We reject government charter of corporations.
All right, Mr. Knapp. Mr. Knapp.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I
Okay,
was really getting a rant going too.
I can imagine. I hate when that happens.
The distinguishing feature of a corporation is that it is chartered by the government. If it's not chartered by the government, it's just a joint stock company, not a corporation. So rejecting government charter of corporations is rejecting corporations.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Anyone further? Mr. Knapp, if you could mute yourself, and now Mr. Taylor.
So I'll speak to that real quickly. Whereas I completely understand where Mr. Knapp is coming from, and it is correct, I think that the average person probably doesn't think on that level about these kinds of things, and it's good to make clear exactly what we're trying to say. I think this amendment kind of spells it out a little bit better, so I would ask the committee to consider that.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further debate, going once, going twice, we will move to a roll call vote. Mr. Secretary, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Madam Chair, point of order. Before
Yes.
we begin the vote, can we get the correct language on the screen, please?
It's there, you just didn't put it in blue. 1 second, he will take care of that.
Thank you.
So to be clear, and thank you, Mr. Perry, I should always restate, what we are voting on is the addition of 2 sentences at the end of the original proposal, which read, we reject government charters of corporations. We call for a separation of business and state. A yes vote
Charter
will,
singular.
okay, it's charter singular, Mr. Secretary. Thank you. So a yes vote will adopt this amendment. We'll move on to going back to the primary as amended, and a no vote will reject it, and we'll go back to the primary as not amended. So whenever you're ready, Mr. Secretary.
Okay. And so goes now here. Richard Longstreth.
Pass.
Okay. Richard Fast.
Yes.
Jim Fulmer.
Yes.
Jim Cavoli.
Pass.
Paul Grindle. Nope. You Grant Horn still not here. Thomas Knapp.
Abstain.
Cat Martin.
Yes.
Josh McHose.
Yes.
Randy McGlynn. Not present. Al Meckley.
Yes.
Bennett Morse.
Yes.
Joe Perry.
Yes.
Omar Crow votes nay. Roger Roots. Not here yet. Brian Sawinski. You see I'm on mute. I'll come back to him. Lisa Madsen.
I vote no.
Kerry Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, gonna come back to the top. Mr. Longstreth.
Abstain.
Okay, and Mr. Cavoli.
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, and did I miss anyone?
Mr. Slawinski.
Yes. Brian Sawinski.
I'm going to unmute him here.
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Indeed it was.
Okay. All right. So I show 9 yay, 2 nay, 3 express abstentions.
Yep, that's what I have. So that passes. Let me just remute Mr. Slawinski. Mute everyone who is not speaking because there's some background noise. All right, we are now to the primary motion as amended. So it's the language we read at the beginning with the addition of these 2 sentences. Mr. Perry.
I would like to make an amendment to delete the first 2 sentences so that the plank would only have the 2 sentences that we just adopted.
Okay. You can speak to it.
I think it speaks for itself, but just to clear up any confusion about, I know in the last meeting there was discussion about the wording of individuals who form corporations. Could that include somebody that has sold off all of their shares a long time ago that was a founder of a corporation? Could they possibly be held financially liable for something that happened when they were no longer involved with the business? And then trying to come up with, how do we actually word that? And I think that, just to alleviate any confusion, let's eliminate, that plus the first sentence seemed to have gotten some negative feedback from some members of the committee. So let's just do the language that we just agreed upon and see if that passes as the blank.
So point of information, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, I got lost here.
He wants to delete the original. Yeah, that's it.
We're striking all that, right? Okay, that's what I
That's,
thought.
that's his amendment.
Yeah. Okay. Give me 1 second. I'll get on screen.
And while you're doing that, Mr. Cavoli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I suppose I would support this amendment here because here's the thing. My reason for abstention before was that I could generally agree with the last amendment and was very close to voting yes on it. However, I found it with these other 2 sentences to really confuse the issue. I didn't find it an improvement in combination. And my main beef with the existing proposal is the implication that the only acceptable corporate form is unlimited liability corporations. It's an option, I guess, but I don't know that we really particularly want to say that we're only for unlimited liability corporations. I'm certainly not personally, and I don't think that the party necessarily is or isn't either. Along those lines, really, I was going to propose an amendment to just write part of the second sentence, but I quite like it with all of that removed. I would concede that perhaps altering this to only turn out the second sentence might be fine. The first sentence is maybe a little vapid in that case, but it does leave a little bit more meat on the bone. Otherwise, I'm leaning in favor of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Now I will offer my previous objection. If we reject government charter of corporations, we are rejecting corporations. That happens to be, in my opinion, the libertarian position. So I'm all for those last 2 sentences and would love to have them be the entire proposal. I will support that. But if we do this, we should also go ahead and amend to 2.8, which has half the sponsors it needs for email ballot, to remove the word corporations from that plank, so that it's clear that the Libertarian Party does not support government creation of business entities with artificially limited liability.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Anyone further? Okay, we will proceed then to a vote. What we are voting on is striking the first two sentences of the primary proposal so that, if passed, it would read only, we reject government charter of corporations. We call for a separation of business and state. If it's defeated, it goes back to containing all of the sentences. So four complete sentences. Mr. Secretary, whenever you are ready.
Yes. Richard Longstreth.
Yes.
Richard Fass. Richard Fass.
Richard passes for right now. He's having some technical issues. He says he's muted.
I'll unmute him. Like, go around him.
Yeah. Jim Floner.
No.
Jim Cavoli.
Yay.
Thomas Knapp.
Yes.
Cat Martin.
Yes.
Joshua Nichols.
Yes.
Randy McGlynn. No. Al Meckley.
Yes.
Ben Morse.
Yes.
Dale Perry.
Yes.
Omar Curl votes abstains. Roger Roots.
He's
Ryan
not.
Selinsky. Is he on mute as well, Manager?
Let me get him. I'll unmute him right
Lisa
now.
Madsen.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Selinsky votes yes.
Lisa Madsen.
I vote yes.
Curry Taylor.
Yes.
And who am I missing? Mr.
Mr.
Fast.
Fast.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'm going to vote no. I wanted to add to the debate, but I was muted, so I couldn't. But I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I miss anyone? Madam Chair, I show 11 aye, 2 nay, 1 express abstention.
Yep, that is also what I have. Okay, so now the primary amendment, the primary motion, excuse me, is just the two sentences. We reject government charter of corporations. We call for a separation of business and state. So that is what we are now debating and / or amending. And if there's no further amendments or debates, we will proceed to a vote. All right, seeing none, I will restate again what we are voting on, so give Mr. Secretary time to set up his ballot. We are voting on adopting the language, we reject government charter of corporations. We call for a separation of business and state. I do want to just note something here. If this passes, it is our proposal, but we still have to determine, and it is on this agenda to do so, a name and placement if it passes. Just a FYI, so that everyone's not making their Thursday night plans immediately, that there's still a few more tasks to do. Mr. Secretary.
Yes, alrighty. Richard Longstreth.
Yes.
Richard Fass.
He's muted again. He also wishes to be recognized.
Yeah, Karen, if the phone people handle muting themselves on their devices, then they'll actually be able to try and get your attention. If you force mute them from the panel, they have there's
Okay.
some code that they can punch, but I don't know what it is. And
I'm going to take this as my fault and go back. I'm going to act as if we haven't started voting, and hopefully no one here is going to object to that because I believe it was my fault for not giving for unmuting the two people on the phone. I have you unmuted, Richard, but you guys need to start handling muting on your own because.
Yes, I have been during this call. I mute myself when I'm not speaking.
Okay, because you hadn't for a bit. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, yes. If it's not too late, I would like to add back in the first sentence of the original proposal, which was, quote, corporate entities are not people and possess no rights distinct from the individuals within them. I'd like to add that back in if that's possible.
Well, that would be a motion to reconsider. And since we're in the same meeting, what side did you vote on that?
I'm sorry, which one?
I'm deleting those two sentences. What side did you vote on that? I'm going to have the secretary check, and I'm sure you would know.
I believe I voted no on that.
Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, he's not on the prevailing side.
Okay, Mr. Perry?
On the prevailing side, and I would make that motion on behalf of Mr. Fass.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Matson.
All right, so I'm debating here whether this is even in order once under the rules of insert and strike out. Once you struck it out, if you can come back and propose to reinsert the exact same language that was struck out. But actually, I think since you're phrasing it as a reconsider, that handles that.
Yeah, we're going to Ms. Matson, just to clarify, because my pause was considering the same things. We're reconsidering the entire two sentences. This is the only way it can be done, and then Mr. Fass can propose an amendment to keep one of the sentences.
That works.
Yeah, that's to me the only way it would. So if hopefully that's clear to everyone. Mr. Knapp. Mr. Knapp?
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, I've unmuted you when I noticed that it's been a bit. So I just pictured
Okay.
you gaining a good head of steam and denied.
Oh, no big head of steam this time. I will just say that we did get this proposal down to something that seems reasonable, that a supermajority agreed on, and personally, I'd like to quit fucking with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Madam Chair, Richard
Yes,
Taft.
yes, Mr. Fast.
Would now be an appropriate time, since we are in a reconsideration, for me to propose keeping the first sentence and striking the second?
We're on debating whether or not to reconsider. You can debate, not make a motion. You can go into the merits of the actual question, but we haven't decided whether we're going to reconsider yet.
Okay, if that's the case, then I would just encourage this committee to go ahead with the reconsideration, and that's all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Knapp, did you wish to speak still? No, he lowered his hand. So to be clear, that's what we are debating right now is the motion to reconsider. If the motion to reconsider passes, we will be back to talking about those two sentences. But during debate on a motion to reconsider, you can somewhat get into the issues, but it gets a little weird. All right, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, just real fast, I'd like to discourage reconsideration of this, mainly because although I think this language could be massaged into something that a lot of us could agree with, I don't think we're there. And in the 3 days since the last meeting, we haven't gotten there either. I personally would like to see if you're going to call out corporations in this language to also call out governments for almost exactly the same reasons. Since we're not doing that though, I would say let's just stick with what we've agreed with fairly well. Thanks.
Thank you. I have Mr. Secretary and then Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I gotta say, well said by Mr. Longstreth, except for that last part. I'm more of the mindset of I kind of would like to just work this out a different way versus working on the fly like we're doing right now. But yeah, there's Yeah, I don't know what to do. I to reconsider, not to reconsider, because I don't want to get on board talking about the original language, but there's a lot that I'm missing here from all this. So I'm just really not supportive of what we got going on.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
So I decided to take a look at some of the old platforms, and I noticed in 2002, and I believe it was also in 2004, in the summary of the monopolies plank, there was a sentence that said, "We advocate a strict separation of business and state." And unfortunately, that language is currently no longer in the platform. So I would just like to encourage everyone to keep the two sentences that we just adopted. And for clarification, Madam Chair, a yes vote would do what, and a no vote would do what on the motion to reconsider?
A yes vote would cause us to go back to back to debating those two sentences. A no vote will put us back to voting on whether to pass out of committee those two that we were beginning with we reject.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And I will be voting no, so that we can just move forward with these two sentences. But since Mr. Fast had apparently attempted to make a motion, but was muted, I felt it necessary to make sure that he could at least have a vote on what he was trying to get a vote on.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Perry. That's the same spirit as I tend to do. I'm going to exercise my privilege to speak, which I normally do not. I would urge against reconsideration. I ask everyone to always exercise a good reading of the room before bringing motions. Of course, you can bring any motion that you like, but to me, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. It's happened. But it seems to me pretty clear that the room liked what we had passed. It was an overwhelming vote. So that's just my particular read on it. Any further, Mr. Fast? Mr. Fast.
Yes, thank you. The reason why I'm proposing to reconsider is not so that we can hash out the same arguments that we've heard previously about these two sentences, but rather that if the reconsideration were to pass, my intent, the reason why I'm trying to do this is so that we can get back the first sentence, which seemed to have more agreement amongst this committee than both of those sentences together. So rather than going back to what the committee decided against, my intent, my purpose, my hope is that we can get back that first sentence, which more people agreed upon, and I think that we would have a better consensus that way, and that would make this a better plank should we decide to go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fast. And strategically, again, as I'd like to advise the committee, it typically happens that items without minority reports get heard faster and passed faster out of a typical convention. I do think you are automatically drawing a minority report in this proposal, even if it did pass. It's just an FYI. I like everyone to think strategically, because that's what we have to do, because all of this is worthless if it doesn't pass our convention. Any further debate? Okay, Mr. Secretary, so what we are voting on is the motion to reconsider. A yes vote puts us back to the motion to delete those two sentences. So those two sentences will be put back, and we are reconsidering, I believe it was Mr. Perry's amendment to delete those two sentences. A no vote, we're back to where we were before I made the mistake of starting voting without allowing Mr. Fast because he was muted. Is that clear?
Point of information.
Yes, Mr. Secretary.
I think I know the answer to this question. I don't have my Robert in front of me. This requires a majority because we're in the same session, correct?
It's a simple majority, and just
Yeah.
for interest, motions to reconsider are a simple majority, even if what is going to be reconsidered required a higher threshold to pass.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Richard Longstreth.
No.
Alrighty. Richard Fast.
Yes.
Jim Fullner.
Yes.
Jim Cavoli.
Hey,
Thomas Knapp.
No.
Cat Martin.
No.
Josh McClose.
No.
Al Meckley.
No.
Bennett Morse.
No.
Dale Perry.
No.
Omar Crowe votes aye. Brian Swinsky.
No.
Alicia Madsen.
I don't know.
Kerry Taylor.
No.
And did I miss anyone?
Mr.
Madam Chair?
Slawinski, did you get that? Okay, thank you.
He's a nay, and my numbers show 15. So I have 3 aye, 11 nay, no express abstentions.
Okay, thank you. So before I let us know where we're at, I want to acknowledge an error I just made. I should not have allowed Mr. Perry to speak against his own motion, even though he was making it on behalf of somebody. That was an error on my part. I don't think it caused any harm, but I did want to acknowledge that once I realized it.
Point of
Okay.
information.
Yes, Ms. Martin.
Why is he not allowed to speak against his own motion?
It's just a Roberts thing. You're assumed to be making motions that you actually support.
Okay.
And interestingly, I learned you can't even speak against it if it got amended in a way you didn't like, which I think is nonsense, but we'll learn that
Madam-
today.
Madam Chair, I would like to point out that I realize that we don't use Masons, but in accordance with Masons, it is proper to speak against a motion that you made, especially a motion to reconsider.
Okay, there's no biggie, no harm, no foul. I just didn't want people to recall this and then bring it up later as some kind of precedent because I'm acknowledging my error. All right, so we are now back to voting on whether we will adopt as a proposal the two sentences. We reject the government charter of corporations. We call for a separation of business and state. We're still open for debate or amendment, even though it was over before. What had just happened might have stirred up some thoughts. Okay, Mr. Ricaro, yes.
As you said, we're open for amendments and debate. However, we stripped away so much from the bone here. What would be proper in terms of an amendment? Because
We're back to the primary, so nearly anything is proper except for things that have already been defeated without reconsidering. We've already decided not to reconsider.
okay, thank you.
But if you had some entirely, I hate to bring this up, I was reading the discussion, but I'm gonna give an example. There were people talking about piercing the corporate veil. If that was something they wished, a sentence talking about that would be proper to add at this time. I'm not saying whether that would be wise or not, but it would be proper. Okay, seeing nothing further, whenever you are ready, Mr. Secretary, for the roll call vote.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Perry.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to insert before the first sentence the following sentence, and I can't put this in chat.
Okay.
Government is the source of monopoly through its grants of legal privilege and special interest in the economy.
Did you put it in chat so that the secretary can get it?
I'm going to have it in the chat in like 5 seconds.
Okay, because I'm not so sure I caught that myself.
Yeah. Okay.
And I see Mr. Knapp was blaspheming in chat earlier. All right, so the Perry amendment is to add the sentence to the beginning, government is the source of monopoly through its grants of legal privilege to special interests in the economy. And then what would follow after that is we reject government charter corporations. We call for the separation of business and state. Where we are at, though, is debate on the Perry Amendment, and Mr. Perry gets to speak to that. Mr. Perry?
Oh, so while I was making the motion, my wife, who is an econ major, she has a bachelor's in economics and is working on an MBA, told me that apparently it's factually incorrect that government is the source of monopolies. Apparently it's incredibly rare that a so-called natural monopoly exists, but apparently there are some natural monopolies. This is not me necessarily speaking against the motion, it's me relaying information from my economic degree wife.
Mr.
Hold on.
Hold on. If Jackie would like to get on the call, she is welcome and to be recognized without objection from the committee as a guest. But having her in the background of your call is very, very disruptive.
Yeah, I was trying to tell her to not talk while I'm unmuted. Again, I'm just relaying information on her behalf, and I will tell her that if she, I will tell her that if she wants to jump on at the end of the call for any public comment, she can do so.
Well, she can jump on now. Anybody can always raise their hand, and I ask the committee if they object to hearing from a member of the gallery. I don't know what the committee would decide on that. All right, thank you, Mr. Knapp. Anyone further?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fogler?
I don't have a problem with the addition. I just don't think it's necessary. In the past, we've tried to streamline these things as much as possible. I think the two sentences that we have say everything that really needs to be said.
Okay, I have Mr. Secretary, Mr. Knapp, and I think Mr. Fast was trying to speak. Okay, Mr. Secretary?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that just from a standpoint of how a lot of the proposals are, how the platform presents itself, this doesn't present itself like how a lot of the other planks do. So that's my first issue amongst many others. But I just don't get what we're trying to prove here with this wording. I don't get what we're trying to say. I don't get where this. I look for value. I look for strength. You know, when we're proposing things in a committee to make the platform better. I'm not saying it doesn't make the platform better or worse. I'm struggling with why it makes the platform better. So I look forward to more debate. Thank you.
Mr. Knapp?
Yeah, well, I agree with the statement. I don't think it adds anything to the plank that we need to add, because we can be against government charter of corporations and for a separation of business and state for reasons other than government being the source of monopoly. So I don't know. I think we ought to just state our position and leave it at that.
Mr. Beckley? And then Ms. Matson? Mr. Beckley?
Sorry, I thought I was muted.
So are you wishing to speak or no?
No.
Okay, Ms. Matson?
I was on the verge of raising my hand to say I think this is factually inaccurate, so I'll vote against it for that reason, if no other reason. But I'm also very confused by this. I think we throw spaghetti ideas rather than ideas that logically flow. And I also wanted to ask, was this is proposed to be a separate plank, correct? But is there no title? Wasn't there a title in the original proposal?
No, Mr. Fulner withdrew the title, and that it was tentatively called corporatism, but it wasn't part of the proposal.
I see. So the title doesn't go with it, because if we had a title that kind of put some constraints on what's appropriate to go into plank, and that maybe that's why we're getting this throw spaghetti at the wall and then come up with a title later. But I don't support a new plank about corporations when we already have one anyway, and this particular addition is confusing and factually inaccurate, so I'm going to vote against it.
Mr. Fast, were you trying to speak before?
Yes, however, what I wanted to add was a separate amendment that is not related to the Perry Amendment. So once we're done with the Perry Amendment, if you could put me in the queue, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further debate on the Perry Amendment? Seeing none, whenever you are ready, Mr. Secretary, what we'll be voting on is adding the sentence at the beginning of the proposal to government is the source of monopoly through its grants of legal privileges to special interests in the economy.
All right, Richard Longstreth?
No.
Rich Fast?
No.
Tim Fulner?
His video seems to be frozen.
Okay, come back. Was that yes?
That is a yes, Mr. Omar.
Thank you. Jim Foley?
Nay.
And Thomas Knapp?
No.
Cat Martin?
Nope.
Jeff McHose?
No.
Al
Beckley?
No.
Ben Morse?
No.
Dale Perry?
Abstain.
Mark votes nay. Roger Root? No. Ryan Slawinski?
Hold on, I have him muted. 1 second. Let me unmute him. Mr. Slawinski?
No.
Lisa Matson?
I vote no.
Gary Taylor?
No.
All right. Did I miss anyone? Madam Chair, I show 1 aye, 12 nay, 1 express abstention.
Okay, that fails. Before I call on anyone, I'm going to give my advice one more time. Please read the room when making amendments, because I think everyone will thank you. But that, of course, does not prevent anyone. I'm just hearing a loud and clear message from this committee. Mr. Fast.
Okay, so I have 2 proposed amendments, and we'll just deal with them one at a time. The first is this. Prior to the first sentence, we reject, prior to that, I would like to insert, quote, corporations are not people, comma, and possess no rights distinct from the individuals within them, end quote.
No, that is out of order.
It is different language than the original proposal.
It is not substantially different language, Mr. Fast. That is out of order.
Okay, I'll go on to my second proposal, and that is to add after the second sentence, we call for a separation of business and state, to insert, quote, we also oppose corporatism due to its historical ties to fascism, end quote.
Okay, that is a motion you wish to make, Mr. Fast?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are on debate of adding the sentence. We also oppose corporatism due to its historical ties to fascism. Mr. Fast, you may speak to it, and then I have Mr. Caboli and Mr. Knapp.
Okay, so this kind of goes to the Perry Amendment, in which I believe that he and his wife were correct that that is inaccurate. And I think that if we're going to talk about corporatism, or the intent behind this proposed blank is to talk about corporatism, then we should also acknowledge its historical context. And so corporatism has been tied to fascism in Europe, and I think that even though yes, this is the United States, not Europe, we need to at least acknowledge historically what has happened, and that has been the case.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cavoli, and then I have Mr. Knapp and Mr. Morris. Mr. Cavoli.
Yeah, so this is the second time that I'm just going to start calling it the C word. Corporatism has come up in this debate, and I remain unclear about what exactly we are trying to address specifically, as Ms. Mattson said earlier in another debate, even with the addition of the plank at all, and having followed the discussion online. I mean, are we saying that we're opposed to corporatism as a political ideology, or are we, are we opposed to the general concept of the control of a state or an organization by some interest group? There's a couple different definitions that float around depending on the context in which that word is used, and they range from things that I don't know that we clearly oppose all the way up to things that I don't think we have to explicitly come out and oppose, and I don't know where the pressure is coming from. I think the best version we have got has been agreed to by this committee en masse, and if it stands any chance of passing, it's going to be like that. So any additional language seems to walk us straight back into confusion over those words. It seems to be a hard point to make, and that maybe ought to be a signal to us that it's a hard point for us to make amongst ourselves. It will be a hard point to make amongst the delegates, and certainly the public. Thank you.
Right, I have Mr. Knapp and then Mr. Morris.
Okay, I believe that we do need to take historical context into account here. And here's the thing, this is a plank about corporations. Corporatism does have a historical connection to fascism. What it has absolutely no connection whatsoever to is corporations. It is a political philosophy that is syndicalist and fascist in origin that has nothing whatsoever to do with financial or business corporations as they're referred to in the rest of the plank. It's just completely non-germane.
Thank you very much. Mr. Morris.
I just simply think it's a weak argument. There's nothing in here that actually provides substance. It's just identifying two ideologies without defining them and saying that we oppose something simply because another ideology supports it. Something like that belongs in the other two parties, but not in our party. I emphasize, I would like to emphatically oppose this amendment.
Madam Chair?
Okay, I'll put you in line, Mr. Fast, Ms. Mattson, and then Mr. Fast.
So the logic of this just is not how we form logic and form planks. You know, if you're going to oppose corporatism, then argue why, but don't argue because it reminds me of something else. You know, the color red reminds me of certain terrible historical groups. So we oppose red. That's not rational. That's not rational. You oppose the thing that you oppose, and let's not make absurd logic. I'm not going to support this, obviously.
Thank you, Ms. Mattson. Mr. Fast, and then I have Mr. Fulner. Mr. Fast.
Okay, thank you. Having heard this feedback, I would like to withdraw my motion.
Is there an objection to Mr. Fast withdrawing this motion? Speak. I'll give you permission to verbalize because I'm not sure if a raised hand would be for it. So hearing no verbal opposition, the motion is withdrawn. We are back to debate amendment on we reject government charter corporations. We call for separation of business and state. If there's further debate or amendment, please get in the queue. Hearing none, we are now voting as to whether or not we will adopt that proposal out of committee. I'm just giving the secretary time to do what he'd like to do, and he can start the vote when he is ready.
All right, yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Richard Fast, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I do want to apologize to the committee for my previous motion. I realized after hearing Ms. Mattson that was probably improper, and so I apologize about that. However, with that said, I would like to encourage the committee to vote in favor of these two sentences. I think that having heard the discussion today and the online thread the past couple of days, that I think that this is probably the most productive thing that we can agree upon. I really hope that this committee would go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fast. Mr. Secretary?
Yes, all righty. Richard Longstreth?
Yes.
Richard Fast?
Yes.
Mr. Fulner? I'm just going to give Mr. Fulner a chance. Jim Cavoli?
Nay.
Paul Grindle? No. Thomas Knapp?
Yes.
Ken Martin?
Yes.
Josh McHose?
Yes.
Al Meckley?
No.
Bennett Morris?
No.
Dale Perry?
Yes.
Anything else going on here?
Mr. Fulner?
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Elmore Crowe votes yes. Elmore Crowe votes nay. And Brian Solinsky?
Let me unmute him, please. 1 second. He is unmuted.
No.
Lisa Mattson?
I vote no.
Gary Taylor?
Aye.
Okay. Did I miss anyone? I don't think I did. I show 8 in favor, 6 nay, and no express abstention, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So this passes. Where we are at now is determining a name and placement. Mr. Knapp.
Yes, Madam Chair. I need a point of information or parliamentary procedure. Would it be in order to propose appending this to 2.8 as opposed to making it a separate plank proposal?
1 second. Let me think about it. And I want to give you, because I think I know where you might be going next. I'm anticipating. Yes, it would be in order to do that. It would not be in order to change other language in 2.8 at this time, because that would go beyond the notice of this meeting. But it would be in order, since we are deciding placement, to move to put it at the end of 2.8.
I so move.
Okay, we are now, let me explain with everyone. Mr. Perry is moving to place it at the end of the current plank of marketplace freedom, which is 2.8, which reads as follows. Libertarians support free markets. We defend the right of individuals to form cooperations, cooperatives, and other types of entities There's a missing Oxford comma there. Based on voluntary association. We oppose all forms of government subsidies and bailouts to business, labor, or any other special interest. Government should not compete with private enterprise. Where's the language? I lost, Mr. Ricciero, the 2 sentences.
Yeah, give me. I was just copying it from the
Okay,
site.
and then these 2 sentences would be added. We reject government charter of corporations. We call for a separation of business and state.
Yeah.
Mr. Knapp, you can speak to this. Mr. Knapp?
I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute myself.
Okay.
We just came up with some good language. We just came up with some precise and brief language that seems to me to fit into the subject matter of plank 2.8. So instead of labeling it separately and giving it a separate plank number, my intent here is that we just add this to that plank because it fits there.
Okay, thank you. I have Mr. Secretary and then Mr. McCose. Go ahead, Omar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm brainstorming here, and I really should have my book next to me. I was going to call a point of order as to why is this in order to append 2.8, and in regard to the scope of notice, because this was new language, and now we're appending a current plank.
It's,
I'm
if
sort of
you,
answering my own question now.
did you want me to speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead. I think that'll be answered.
He's basically, it's in effect the same thing. He's proposing naming it the same thing as a current plank and consolidating it. Since the naming and placement of it were at issue, this is within the scope of notice. Okay, Mr. McCose, Mr. Perry, and then Mr. Fulmer. Mr. McCose.
I'd just like to add that Mr. Knapp is pretty much on point. I completely agree that it does like conflict with markets and everything else that's within the current 2.8 plank, and so I would vote in favor of this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Perry, and then Mr. Fulmer's following him. Mr. Perry.
Yeah, I support this placement in 2.8 and would also like to remind everyone that Mr. Knapp does have a proposal seeking to make a slight modification to the existing plank 2.8 that's in the email thread, and I have already co-sponsored, and I would like to encourage at least 2 others to do the same.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Fulmer.
I have 2 requests for information. The first is has this committee submitted any other proposals related to 2.8 at this time?
No.
Okay, my second theory, which is maybe more difficult to answer, if this were added to 2.8, would that make 2.8 our longest plank?
That I don't know. We can take a visual look, see if the secretary will pull up the platform. No, it looks like 2.7 would already be longer.
Okay,
2.4 is close, 2.2 is long. So, 2.1, no, I think it actually balances out quite well.
Several of them in the 3 area appear to be longer, 3.2, 3.5, 3.6.
That's enough to answer my question. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Is there any other further debate or Ms. Matson?
I think there's been a trend in a lot of other proposals that have been passed from this committee to just say the same things that we've already said, but say it with more words. And I think we're also treading in that territory here. And when it's more obvious when it's tacked on to the end of 2.8. We already have a libertarian support free markets, and then this we call for separation of business and state, which is awfully vague, but overlaps to a great degree with what I think most people would apply it to, in terms of supporting free markets. So I think we're just kind of adding things that people like to say without getting extra value for them. And I'm not in favor of just saying more words just to say more words.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Pass.
may I be recognized?
Yes, and after you will be Mr. Taylor.
Okay, thank you. I would like to disagree with Ms. Matson. I think that by adding these 2 sentences, which we've already agreed on, it does add more value to 2.8 marketplace freedom, because we need to be explicit on where we stand. I think that was the original intent behind the proposed plank of corporations, is to be more explicit and more clear. I think these 2 sentences do add value. They do add clarity in a way that the existing language does not already do. And for that reason, I would encourage the committee to please vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've already passed the 2 sentences, and it's going to either be either or. We add it to this already existing plank, or we make a completely separate plank with related language with 2 different titles. To me, this is the simpler of those 2 choices, so I'm voting in favor of this.
Thank you. Anyone further? Okay, seeing none, where we are at is voting on whether to move this language to the end of 2.8 rather than it being a separate plank. A yes vote would put it there as our proposal. A no vote would leave us back in the position of needing to determine a placement and a name. And whenever you're ready, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, Madam Chair. Alrighty. Richard Longstreth.
Yes.
Richard Pass.
Yes.
Tim Fulmer.
No.
Tim Cavoli.
Yay.
Thomas Knapp.
Yes.
Cal Martin.
Yes.
Jeff McCose.
Yes.
Al Meckley.
Yes.
Elliot Morse.
Abstain.
Dale Perry.
Yes.
Elmore Crow votes nay. Ryan Swinsky.
Hold on, let me unmute him. I should anticipate that. Mr. Slawinski. Thank you.
Lisa Matson.
I don't know.
Corey Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, did I miss anyone? Madam Chair, I showed 10 aye, 3 nay, 1 express abstention.
Yes, that's what I have. So this will, in fact, pass. I believe we are at the end of the agenda when it comes to proposals, though we do say that if there's time remaining, the floor will be open for public comment. There certainly is some time remaining. It would be open for public comment then at this time, unless I'm missing something. I'm waiting for any committee member to draw my attention. If I am.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Perry.
Richard Fast.
Oh, Mr. Perry has his name as well. So Mr. Fast and then Mr. Perry.
Okay, yeah, so I would like to speak on what Mr. Perry mentioned earlier, which is that Mr. Knapp has a proposal to amend 2.8 Marketplace Freedom regarding corporations. I believe that Mr. Perry has agreed to co-sponsor that. I am co-sponsoring that as well. We need one other person to co-sponsor that. I think that will round out this plank very nicely with the language that we just added. So I would encourage at least one other person to please visit that proposal so that this plank can be much smoother. Thank you.
Okay, one moment. That isn't anything that I've forgotten. I had asked people if there's something I've forgotten. Everyone is free to make these kinds of comments, kind of mingling with the public. But right now, what I'm asking is if there's anything before we move into public comment that I missed on the agenda. I have Mr. Perry and then Mr. Secretary.
Madam Chair, not so much something that I think you forgot on the agenda, but a bit of housekeeping, if you will.
Okay.
Can you remind the committee what our deadlines are for various things?
I will bump the thread. I don't have it on the tip of my head, but there is a thread with the deadlines, and I might need to add to that. So take a look right after this meeting. I'll go and take care of that in the discussion group. Mr. Secretary and then Ms. Mattson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first and foremost want to say hello to all of our guests, which is nice to see we have a few people on here. And currently we have something. Oh yeah, we have an amendment right now. So I have a question for you, Madam Chair. We have a question right now, the latest ballot, and I'm working on getting the next one up.
Can we talk about that after the meeting? Because that's not really relevant to the question.
Okay.
I had it. Okay, thank you. Ms. Mattson.
Okay, so Aaron just came home from work and wishes to step in, so I'm stepping out as alternate. He wishes to speak.
Okay.
Hi, I'm just catching up here.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess I have a question, which is I'm looking at the two sentences that were just added. My understanding is that this was just adopted. And,
Yes.
and I guess that we're done with this item. Is that where we're at, or are you still making changes?
We're done. We're about to move into public comment, and I was asking the committee just to be sure that they didn't think I was missing anything on the agenda before moving on to public comment.
So basically we're still in business. So I guess my question is this: was it the intention of the committee to write "We reject government charter of corporations" rather than "We reject government chartering of corporations"? Because right now it's just grammatically incorrect.
Yes, that was clarified. Not the aim part, but we really the maker made it clear that their intent was to use the word charter as it is.
We reject government charter of corporations. Okay, if that's what you folks want, I think that it should be government chartering because it's government doing something. But right now, it's just grammatically wrong. But so be it.
Mr. Secretary, Mr. Cavoli.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got my hand down.
Thank you. Mr. Cavoli put his hand down. Okay, let me put yours. All right, so that being said, we will move into public comment.